Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you to Smart Women Talk, where I search the world for smart women and a few good men, including best-selling authors, thought leaders, and change agents who are on that leading edge. So our topics include things like money, business, health, inspiration, and the metaphysical. Today, we are interviewing public relations and marketing expert Renée Ahee. And we are going to talk about how women can make their encore careers and their new encore businesses more successful. We're going to specifically mention some things like why networking is not a lost art, how to determine your USP, which is your unique selling proposition. Renée believes that selling is not a four-letter word. I know there's a lot of fear around selling and no one wants to be looked at as a salesperson. So this is really going to be very useful. And then how to create your key messages and communicate your value. So in other words, you'll love this, how to sell without selling. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about Renée, and then we'll welcome her on. So Renée is a public relations and marketing professional with more than 40 years in the corporate sector and the private sector combined. Her career also included successful executive management of nonprofit organizations. In business since 1999, her company, in other words, LLC, provides public relations and marketing service for nonprofits and for-profit clients and nonprofits like Marygrove College, as well as for-profit companies. While her time at Marygrove College, she crafted and executed full marketing plans and told stories about the Marygrove experience in social media and traditional media and through speech writing and media relations. And she co-founded the Arab American Women's Business Council, which is a nonprofit organization providing education, professional development, and networking opportunities for Arab American and business and professional women. So I am just so thrilled to connect with you this way, Renée. It's real exciting.
I'm delighted to have been invited, Katana. Thank you. I feel really honored. And I'm really delighted to talk to your listeners and your viewers about this because I think there's a lot of mystique and fear, as you had said, about your next career. Where does it come from? How do I determine it? Should I be in business? What should I do? And a lot of us are too young to retire or never want to retire. And so talking about our next adventure is really a great thing for me. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, and it's interesting. I love this idea of monetizing your message, and we'll go into more about what that means. But I love the idea that you and I decided we were going to package this topic around the idea of an encore career, because so many of the women that have come into our community are at this point where they're 50 plus or nearing 50. They could be in their 40s, but they're looking forward at how they want to spend the second half of their life. And quite often it's much different than what they've done for the first half of their life. Is that true?
Well, it is true for many women. In my particular case, it was, I love my career so much. I love my profession so much that when it was my time, and I didn't realize this was going to happen to me, the women who are on your listening to you and hearing us, seeing us, may have some choices. My encore career came as a result of a severance. The bank that I was working for, and it wasn't exactly the way you want to start your encore career, was of necessity. And at the time that I was offered this severance at the bank that I was working for, there were no senior public relations jobs to be had in our market here in the Detroit area. My children were young, my mom was still alive. So I decided to hang out my own shingle. And the benefit of having my last assignment by the president of Bank One Michigan was to do a community relations research project through which I met community leaders. And as it turns out, those leaders happen to have been my first customers, my first clients. And many of them are in the ethnic communities, the Arab American community, the Hispanic community, the Asian American community. And through that, those were how I built my customer base and got referrals. So what turned out to be not such a happy time, I feel so blessed to have had the career that I have and to be able to make this choice, even after Marygrove College closed, to be able to make the choice that I still want to do this because I love public relations and marketing so much. I think it helps people understand. And the whole idea is not to sell. That's what we're going to be talking about.
Yes, yes. So Renee, how do our listeners determine what they want to do in their next career or business adventure? It seems like that could be difficult, but maybe it's easier than we think.
Well, sometimes it is difficult. As I was explaining in my own experience, it was the result of losing my job. And sometimes that's filled with a lot of fear, a lot of emotion, a lot of anger, so on and so forth. But it may be a blessing in disguise. But for women who do have the choice, they're looking at their career, finding out what they love, what moves their soul is a way to determine, what do I want to do next? And by saying that, you want to ask yourself, why do I want to change my career, or why do I want an encore career or a new business or something like that? Because your why in all aspects of life, your why is your motivator. Why do I want to do that? Well, I still want to provide for my family. I still want to feel vital in the community. Whatever it is that motivates you, and determine what you love about the job that you have and go with that. In my case, I love public relations and I wasn't planning to leave it as a profession. It was one that I chose after looking at many different possibilities, and PR was the one that called my name. And so it was very much that. It is also, what is it about your product and service that people need or want? If you want to go into business, where's the niche? What is the market asking for? And that's how you will be able to determine whether or not that fits for you too, right? So there are many ways, as you have had many kinds of careers, Katana, and you settle on those that help women. So that motivates your soul, that motivates you. And that's what I am recommending for women who have the opportunity to make a choice. And we are all at choice,
Yeah,
even if it starts out badly.
yeah, and when I was in corporate and had a financial planning practice I ran for 20 years, I worked with, people who were retiring, business owners, but there was this niche that I loved, and CPAs, attorneys, even the husbands would seek us out and hire me to help the wife. Or women would come to me and then they might bring their husband in. But I love that niche and really helping women get smart about money. And so when I finally decided that I wanted to retire, and I wanted to do two things. So, and I noticed you've done these two as well. I did my for-profit, but I also did a nonprofit. And what I want to share, Renee, is that so many, I'd like to go back and get that stat for you, but so many of our women who have gone into the Smart Women's Academy and taken our survey said one of their major goals was making a difference. So I'm thinking, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, all these women are they're tired of just working for someone else, perhaps, and doing someone else's why. And they know they have something special inside of them. They want to be able to make a difference and get out there and bring this new idea or project to the world. Do you find that's true? Because I do.
Well, indeed, I think that at this point in our life, it's maybe a little bit more than about making money. Maybe it's more about, yes, I want to make money, and we're going to be talking about exactly that, monetizing your message. We all have to make money, but what motivates that making of the money? And that's where you're going to find the piece. It's not going to be a job. It'll be something that you will put your heart into, and you will be successful with that.
And sometimes it can be working from someone else too.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. It is.
Because not everybody's up to like starting a business, but
right.
it's like a passion project in a way.
I think so. And for whatever motivates that woman to say, okay, I want to change. You can go to another company. You can go ahead and say, yeah, it's time for me to try something new. and put yourself out there in such a way as I want to make a difference. And it could be in corporate. We're not bashing anybody. I mean, corporate America is very valuable to us. It brings forth products and services that we don't necessarily have and can't, as an individual, bring to market. But there are other ways that we can.
Right, right. And also, it seems like as we get older, we gain this sense of confidence, right? And this maturity that even when we stay in corporate, we've branded ourselves in a way. And so we can move more into leadership and being more creative. And you understand what I'm saying? You're more like, now you're the sage, even in corporate.
Right. And we hope that we
Yeah.
are at this time in our life,
Yeah.
that we can, earlier on, we may have had a family that we had to support. We may have, for many reasons, needed the job and we kept the job. But in those years, we gained skills, we gained confidence. I'm not saying there's no fear. I mean, I was petrified to hang my shingle out. Absolutely. What if I don't get any customers? What if? But there's passion behind it, and then you will find a way too. And also, when you talk about, we're going to talk a little bit later about your key messages. Those are based on your mission.
Well, yeah. And so, I wanted this USP, which, what the heck is that? And how to, I think we mentioned it earlier. I know we mentioned it earlier. It's unique selling position, I think. Proposition. Okay, great. So why don't we talk about
term? It's definitely a marketing term.
Yeah.
The USP is what makes you unique. So that if you're going into business, what makes your product or service better, higher quality, cheaper, more accessible, something different? Is it an improvement on an existing product or service? Your USP is what makes you unique, or your product unique. When it comes to a career, a professional career, what makes you unique? What skills have you acquired? What talents have you developed? What experience do you have? And those are what sets you apart from everybody else. Because if you were just like everybody else, it would be difficult, but you're bringing something to the party. Perhaps my background in banking, public relations, and the experience I had in community relations that set me up to take on that special project the president gave me before I left, and allowed me to meet those community leaders. And I have since, and talking to the people who you worked with, they know your unique selling proposition, right?
That's such a good point, right? If you're not sure what it is, interview your friends and ask them.
Yeah. And see and they'll tell you what you're good at. And you're going to be a little bit embarrassed. You're going to say, oh, I'm not that good. Yeah, you are probably marvelous at it. And so you want to also, to one point or another, you're going to put it on paper. And that's when we're going to talk a little bit about mission and vision when it comes to both your career and a new business.
And one of the things that I find very important is, because I have in the Smart Women's Academy, I have the Unlock Your Financial Power course, and there's an exercise I have people do, and it's the Ben Franklin, all the reasons for and all the reasons against, you make a T. And so, but I do it a little bit different. And one of the things that I have them doing is just writing down all the things they love doing, all the things they're great at on one side, and the other side, all the things that they hate doing, that drain their energy, that they put off. And then I won't go into the whole exercise, but so often things that we are the greatest at, that are so effortless, that are so natural, we think are worthless. We think, well, that's nothing. No one would pay me for that. And that is your brilliance, because it's so easy and simple and effortless. But that's why it is your brilliance. And that is what you should be doing and charging for if you're a consultant or, promoting yourself in that career, let's say, for that position, to say, this is where I can shine because it is so easy for me. And you'll shine at it, rather than what some people try to do is to get better at the part they're not good at. And then they sabotage themselves and go into self-doubt.
Well, we can try to be good at everything, and we won't. But what we know we're good at, let's strengthen our strengths. And we can work on our weaknesses, but let's look at what we have, what we can give, what we love to do. And that's where the whole business of passion and what motivates your soul comes in, because now that you are at choice in either your career or finding a business that you want to promote, you can look back and say, what am I good at? What is easy for me too? Because there are going to be other things that are more difficult. And I'm not saying you're not going to be afraid. And I love your T model. I call it the pros and cons. And when you see it in writing and you can weigh it, even counting them, oh, I've got more pros here than I do cons. That's also a support for yourself to be able to make that decision.
Right, right. That's great. And I use that exercise to say, focus on these things over here 80% of the time. These other ones, cross out the ones you can just eliminate completely, or delegate, or outsource, hire someone, partner with someone, give it to someone else. So you can spend 80% of your time over here and you will create wealth and be successful, but mostly you'll be happy.
Well, you're bringing up a point. When I first started my company, I was sitting in the car and I looked over and there was the accountant of my dreams, because for my master's, I took accounting twice, which broke my heart. But I recognized that, no, I did not want to do accounting in my business. I did not want to worry about taxes and so on. So that's that thing that I decided to delegate and pay for that service, where, I could handle, as a sole practitioner, I could handle my own administrative stuff and didn't need to hire that out. But you will be able to see that in your pros and cons list and your strengths and weaknesses list. And that is also something that makes a whole lot of sense then. So you don't worry about that. You go to somebody whom you trust. And that's always you're always able to do that.
I just thought of something too while we've been talking, is when we, do our strengths and everything, sometimes there's an experience that we've had that makes us an expert. And there was an example with a woman who had gone through a horrible divorce. She got out of shape and she found a personal trainer. She got herself in shape and it changed everything. Her confidence, her health changed.
Yeah.
And what she realized is that she wanted to work with women that had gone through a divorce like her, because she knew not just what you needed to do, but the why and how to really make it. She could really communicate with them. Now, by sharing what she did with people, even other trainers, she was able to get more referrals, because it was easier to say, if they saw someone going through a divorce they could see needed her, it would be easy to say, you've got to go to this woman because she only works with women going through a divorce and she has a special system.
That's niche marketing.
That's, yes.
It's not the happiest thing, but there's so many who go through that, right. that sad experience, and they let themselves go. It's an emotional thing. It's a potentially financially draining experience, and you feel less than. And so what we're talking about today is, how do you not feel less than, but be at your best, your choice, to be able to make the rest of your life what you want it to be. Right?
Well, I was just mentioning it would be easier to market specifically to that niche, and you would also get referrals from other trainers.
Absolutely.
And because I've heard this many, many times. So this leads us into this idea of monetizing your message. And I didn't know if people would get it. I'm hoping they do. It's how to make money, right?
Exactly.
Doing what you do. But I want you to describe what the idea of monetizing your message is to you.
Well, I looked up the word monetize in the dictionary, and the dictionary definition of monetize is to coin into money or to establish as legal tender. It also is to utilize, and then they put in parentheses, something of value as a source of profit. That's the one I like, because what we're talking about is something of profit, which is your skill, your talent, your passion that is different than everybody else's, your motivation. All of that is the value that you bring, the quality of the product or service that you want to bring to market. That's what the value is. Monetizing it is, how do you make money from what you love, from your USP? So that's exactly what you were talking about, this lady's experience. She monetized that and is making a living and helping others make a living, or get back to some kind of normalness, or a new life. And so I think monetizing your messages, we didn't coin that. It was just something that when we talk about message, it's how do you present yourself? What is the message? And we can get into that in a little bit, but determining your message really flows from your mission and your passion, right? And so it starts out with your, if you're going into business, what are the features of your product or service and what are the benefits, right? So when we talk about that, that's how you get your message. You determine why are you in business? Yes, to help people, blah, blah, blah. But talk about your features. And that's also one of the T things kind of that women can do too, is to put down what are the features of my product. And the features are, what is it and how does it work? And the benefits are, what does the customer get? And so that you can speak more to the benefits, and that's how, yeah, it turns on like this, but after the turning on like this, what does it do for you?
Well,
And
it's like if you say, how to monetize your message, that is the, okay, so how to monetize your message so you can, and then, enjoy your life more with ease and prosperity or something like that. But it seems like the benefit, so monetize your message is what they're going to get or what you're going to do, but so you can, and then that's where you're going to put the stuff that stirs the soul, right? And
before
gets
you
people
monetize,
motivated.
before you try to go to market with it, you really need to determine the message,
Right.
right? You've got to determine what is it that you're going to tell people. And I think that where you get your key messages, how do you get them, and how do they develop? Well, they come from, again, your passion, your purpose for being in business, right? And Catriona Pollard, she's a contributing writer for HuffPost, says key messages are the main points you want your target audience to hear and remember. They create meaning and headlines the issues that you want to discuss. Now, for example, one of my key messages is on the homepage of my website. And I know you have key messages, Katana. But it reads, in other words, where words, whether written or oral, video or print, motivate, inspire, change behavior. Right? Because what is public relations about? Changing attitude and changing behavior, so that you're setting the stage, so there's goodwill established and so on and so forth. So that when marketing comes in, you have a chance of selling your product or your service. So first determine what is the message, and you can do that. It's not easy necessarily. It could be confusing, but as you look at features and benefits, and let's go back to the woman who is not necessarily wanting to own a product or sell a product or service, but herself. She's establishing a business. What are your key messages? Well, the key messages are, for example, I worked for all of my career at one of the big 4 accounting firms. And what I did was to help corporations and individuals minimize their tax exposure. Oh, yeah. So that's the benefit for somebody to hire you if you want, or that's the benefit that you bring to your new company, your new accounting firm. So it is really, key messages are for individuals who are going into consultancies or businesses of their own, or others that have a product or service that they want to sell. Right. So, you talked a little bit about social media. Social media is one of those avenues to monetize. Right?
Well, social media is huge right now, and especially everything virtual because of COVID.
Yeah.
But how do we get the messages out to our customers, or to people, to potential employers? What is the best way to get that message out to people right now?
There are several ways to monetize your message. Once you've determined what that is, I happen to like social media, but a little bit less than in-person networking. There our younger women can rely on that and don't understand the value of in-person networking. Now that many of us have been vaccinated, and hopefully we can see people, and even if you just network in Zoom groups or Google Meet groups, getting yourself known to people is a really valuable exercise. I think we didn't have social media, many of us, when we were just starting out in our careers. And so we joined a professional organization. We networked with people to help us to hone our skills. We joined organizations where our customers are. I would recommend that. Going not necessarily, I mean, yes, professional organizations are very helpful for the purpose of professional development, but where do you get your customers? You get them from referrals of people who are in your business, but you also get them from joining a nonprofit board, for example. You don't know where your next referral is going to come from, but you showcase your talents and your skills by offering your time and talents. And that's also, those are very, very helpful avenues to monetize your message. There are also business networking groups. I think you and I both, Katana, are familiar with one of them called Business Network International, where chapters are all over the world, and you are the sole representative of your profession or your type of company. And you had said to me in our original conversation, it's not necessarily those people, but who they know who can be sources of customers to you. And so that too is, they get to see you in person, they get to see you operate, they get to know what motivates you and what your skills and talents are. On social media, as you and Lynn have done for your program, you use social media very effectively. You've got your Facebook page, you're on LinkedIn, you do those important things that you help to monetize your message. You get the word out that we're having this program. I was so delighted and shocked by the response to this program on social media. And that is the way that all of us really need to market. It's not cheap, but it is also a very effective way. Television and radio also are the traditional. Newspapers not as much anymore, but because people are reading them online. But the radio and television is still very effective. You just have to determine, number one, what you can afford and where do your customers listen, read, or watch.
You know, and I think for many of us, programs like LinkedIn
Mhm.
are phenomenal because we can connect with people either locally, you know, depending on how we set that up, or globally. And
Absolutely.
so there's things we can do with social media that we cannot do in person.
And what we have going for us now that we didn't have many, many years ago for many of the women who are on fly is this thing called the internet. I mean, we do work virtually. We have worked virtually now for what, 20 years, so on and so forth. But you know, many of us have been local and have been focused local, either in our jobs or the businesses that we've been in. But we do have the world open to us, and
Yeah.
our talents are transferable to anywhere in the world.
So I wanted to mention something too. I went to my first live event. It was a financial conference in Chicago. I drove out there because it's close by, so I didn't have to get in an airplane because that horrifies me right now. However, going to that event, and it was an educational event, but I met people there that from all over the country that I had never met before. I had so much fun. The energy and the knowledge the energy I got, I felt so excited when I came back, but I gained so much knowledge because there was a lot of speakers and just from other people, you know, other like-minded people in the same kind of work as I was. So I never could have gotten that in some kind of virtual, you know, weekend webinar at all. So let's talk about the importance of these live connections and how important it is and why we all need to get back out there. I mean, we can continue doing this because it's, you know, the Zoom and it's convenient. It's really easy. It saves a lot of time. It's better than a phone call quite often. But this idea of being with people again and connecting and just, it creates some kind of energy that we can't get on this 2D thing.
One of the things that I will say to our ladies is that relationships matter. We know that relationships matter in our private lives, but they are so critical in our business life, our professional life. And those are created by looking into your eyes, shaking somebody's hand, asking them questions about their family, or how did you get into this business, or what really motivates you. Those things you don't have time for that on a Zoom call, for example. But that's the way to break bread, have a cup of coffee with somebody. And you never know what happens after that. Nothing could happen, and yet somewhere down the road, a few years later, somebody says, I got your name from such and such. Oh, really? So I don't discount them. I don't discount any one of them. And aside from the fact that we all know what has happened with relationships in COVID, COVID has stopped us from shaking each other's hands or giving each other a hug or something like that, which I've missed tremendously. And so, yeah, I highly recommend it. And you can find them locally. You can go, as you did, you went to Chicago.
Yes, yes. And I was just thinking how our next guest this month is Ruth Klein. And she does everything with books and branding. So I years ago, probably I'm thinking 15 years ago, Jill Jordan and I had met Ruth, and in our whole we realized we had to reach outside of Detroit for Smart Women's Coaching, and so we did that, and we met Ruth Klein in California, and so we were doing all these virtual things. And then one day we said, we're going to come out there. So we got to, LAX, and we met at a restaurant at the hotel. I think we were there probably for another conference. And it was just so amazing when we saw Ruth, we just ran over to her, and it was like this long lost sister. So we really had created a very close connection using the virtual method. And we really didn't have the video back then. It was pretty much all telephone stuff, and audio. But that idea of meeting in person, was amazing. So really both vehicles are great, but that in-person thing, there is something special.
What I'm noticing is that there's an organization that I belong to, the Public Relations Society of America. And our young PR people, when they're getting out of school, they are making themselves known to the owners of public relations companies or the heads of the PR departments here by going to these events, shaking their hand, and giving them a little business card that said, this is what I have done. I'm a graduate of thus and so, and I'm looking for the next step in my career. And some of them are wise beyond their years about the value of seeing someone, being in their presence, because that's what it was all about for us. Who could mentor us, who could help us, and then we in turn. And giving back is one of the greatest things that we can do in thanks for somebody helping us.
Yes. Yeah. And they know about writing thank you cards, right?
No, that part they haven't really mastered yet. And writing is a lost art. But these are the kinds of things that we want to tell our kids, as we're saying, this is what worked for us. You may think it's old fashioned, but let me tell you that it worked, and it continues to work.
So I know one of the things we said we were going to share was this 4-letter word, right?
Yeah, sell.
Yeah, sell. And, I came from that background. I mean, that's where I started. And even as a child, I went door to door collecting holiday dollars for the poor and the needy. Like Mark Cuban, he'd sold encyclopedias, he said, door to door. But I went to parochial school, and we were always selling. We even sold zip code books. So back in the 70s, and instead of going to houses, where my mom took me? To all the businesses in Hazel Park, because my grandpa was the manager of City National Bank.
Oh my gosh, I worked at City National Bank. I worked at City National Bank.
Okay.
That was my first PR job. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Wiley Galbraith. And it was funny because I sold all mine. Then I went back to the school and I got everybody else's, and I just sold them to all the business owners. And I got #1 prize, a clock. I picked a clock radio.
Wow.
I thought it was.
See, you took that word sell and made it into tell. And that's what I want to talk about.
Oh, good. Okay.
There are so many of us who are afraid of selling. Okay. What if I'm rejected? It conjures up pressure tactics for some. For others, it means rejection. And so before our listeners and viewers' stomachs start to churn, let's change it from sell to tell. And what I mean by that is, you really are telling a story. You're either telling a story about yourself, or you're telling a story about your product. And when you think of it that way, and that you are sharing information that would help somebody, it becomes a different kind of an, I'm going to say, aura or energy around this thing that we're talking about selling. Because I too was petrified. How do I sell myself? Well, that sounds a little not such a nice word that way, but when you realize that what you've got to sell is something of value. I may not buy it right now. I may not need it right now, but it has nothing to do with you. It doesn't have anything to do with your product. I don't need that product right now. And if we think about how we buy, we don't buy everything that someone approaches us with, or we go into the store and buy everything. What is it that we need? What is it that it's going to make our life a little bit easier or better? What is it going to make my business run a little bit more efficiently? So I guess we don't go into situations, even when you're going into networking situations where you've heard of an elevator pitch and you've got this. Well, you don't go to meet somebody and blab all of your, hi, I'm Renee and I do this. You get to know somebody. And that's what I wanted to talk about, relationships mattering. You're establishing relationships. And the more you're seen, the more you get known, the more people ask questions, and you have the opportunity to ask them questions. So tell me, Katana, what do you do? Oh, well, you help women. I have a friend who is going through whatever it is. There is a connection there. And that's what you're trying to make, is a connection. Yes, you're trying to make a sale, but the sale will come from the connection. And that's what I hope our ladies listening to this broadcast will hear, that it isn't about selling, it's about telling. And the story is going to be a good one.
It's not about selling, it's about telling.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's kind of how it makes my heart a little bit calmer,
Right. I could feel that in my heart too, like a kind of, right?
Yeah, right.
Much better.
But it all actually comes from the relationships, that you establish. People know you, Katana, by the relationships that you have established over your career. And they have come forward from your financial planning life into your smart women planning, into this nonprofit. There's and being the midlife millionaire coach, that all of that has transitioned you. And the same thing for me. And the women who are listening, who are looking for an encore career or a new business that they want to feel good about, and how does it add value? And see if it's your purpose. It's your purpose. What do I want to do? What do I want to give back? What do I love? And I think that makes it a whole lot easier than the word selling.
Right.
Selling isn't a 4-letter word when you make it selling.
That's true. So one other thing that we wanted to talk about too is, and I think this is a really big one, and what is the difference between public relations and marketing, and then also which one is better?
Okay. Well,
I want to ask you that, because people wonder which is better.
Well, sure. And they're very different. I would tell you that I use a press release distribution service called Meltwater. And they explain it this way, to keep it simple. Marketing is focused on driving sales and doing so by promoting products, services, or ideas. Public relations is more focused on the maintenance of a positive reputation of a company, brand, or person. So you both promote your company, both promote your ideas. Both you have to, for me, it's a combination of marketing and PR. Now, I chose public relations in my career because to me, the opportunity to change ideas, to establish goodwill, to change behavior is what motivates me in the world of public relations. And you do that through words. You do that through speeches. You do that through annual reports talking about the good work that you do if you happen to be a publicly held company or a nonprofit where you want to tell people about your good works for donors. And the tools of that are, you've heard of a press release. People have heard of a press release. They don't know necessarily what it is, but it is a tool. And all those other things that I mentioned. And marketing's tools are brochures, television, radio, commercials, even social media advertising. And those are the tools of marketing. Which is better? Since I do them both, I love them. And it depends on where you are in your company, right? Sometimes you don't have the cash immediately to advertise. Maybe you only want 4 or 5 clients at a time. Advertising may inundate you, and you'll probably say no more than yes. That might not be what your goal is. Because you're at your encore, you can make these choices. You can say, yes, I only want 5 clients at a time. Whatever. And so you will use public relations more than you will marketing. But is it important to have a website? Absolutely. Whatever it is, that's marketing. That's also PR, right? So I'm going to be politically correct and say I love them both.
Yeah.
But my heart lies in public relations because it helps to establish your reputation, right? And that once you have a reputation, you can ruin that reputation pretty quickly by unethical behavior or your price gouging or whatever it is, or putting something on social media that people should not necessarily see. You have to be very careful because nothing on the internet goes away. Nothing on the internet goes away.
And that's when it's super important to hire public relations expert that handles, when someone has something like a crisis intervention, right?
Yeah,
they can come in and turn it and change the story slightly. So
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And crisis communications is a very important part of public relations. I'm sorry that I had my fill of that with the closure of Marygrove College. Marygrove College was an institution in the city of Detroit for 93 years, and it had to close. So I spent most of my time in crisis communications.
Mhm.
But it did assuage a lot of people's concerns about what was going to happen to our students, what was going to happen to the community. And so, yeah, that's an important part.
Well, I really would love for you to talk a little bit about the Arab American Women's Business Council and how these organizations, other organizations like this, how they help women who face obstacles, getting loans. I know we've got NABO here in Detroit, and it's a national as well, but how to move their businesses forward. So I'd love you to share a little bit about this specific organization, because, we have such a huge community in the Metro Detroit area of Arab American women. And then you actually founded this organization. So why did you do that? And how has that benefited people?
Well, I can tell you that I didn't do it alone. Two
Okay.
wonderful, successful women, Rose Khalifa and Jumana Jude. And I looked at the need out there, and women in general have more difficulty in getting access to capital. If you need access to capital, we are not necessarily mentored by our successful dads or whatever into business. We may not have that background. There also may be, if an Arab American woman covers her hair, she's also signaling and may face biases that we as women in general don't necessarily face. There may be cultural biases, there may be family biases or religious strictures that they have to follow. But we thought that it would be wonderful to help this particular group of women develop their professions, develop their businesses, help them network amongst each other, share what works amongst the Arab American women business owners and professionals. And we also bring in services from outside. We want to help them. There are many things that our women on this call and on this program can know about. Of course, the Small Business Administration has very important programs for women business owners. There's an organization that's partnered with this SBA called SCORE. And very often there are retired people who volunteer their time in their profession, accountants, CEOs, CIOs, all of that. They give their time to help women and men, establish their businesses. The Great Lakes Women's Business Council. I want to say that they took their name from the Arab American Women's Business Council, but Michelle Richards and her team have been around for a long time. They provide capital, access to capital. They provide certification, because many corporations set aside money to do business with women certified owners, WBEs. They call them women business enterprises. And these enterprises have to be at least 51% owned by a woman and operated. And so there are those organizations locally that can help us out. Mm-hmm. And we are going to have an event tomorrow our first in-person. It's called the patio party out in Dearborn, and it is to reacquaint these women. So educating, inspiring, and networking are important. And there are Hispanic organizations, there are Asian American organizations, if that's where you want to join. But there are also women's business organizations like the Great Lakes Women's Business Council, where you can network with other women and learn. So, ours was from a community need, and thank goodness it's still going well. We established it in 2007, and so I encourage the women listening and viewing to reach out to you, Katana, reach out to me. We can help them find the place where they might feel most comfortable.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you did create that community. I'm hoping to connect them to the Smart Women's Empowerment Program as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to do. So we're at the top of the hour now, and I'm so excited you've been here and you've shared so much wisdom. Thank you so very much. I know you have a special gift for our listeners, and we're going to post it on our Facebook page at Smart Women's Empowerment. But at the same time, I would love you to tell women how they can connect with you and get that from your website and what it is.
Well, I created a special piece of paper that are the top 10 tips for monetizing your message. And it reviews some of the things that we talked about today. And if you are interested in connecting with me, my website is inotherwords-llc.com. And you can, we can talk or whatever. There is a form, a contact form, and then I will send you a personal email with this as an attachment.
Wonderful.
So I've been so thrilled to be invited. Katana, thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk about the thing that I love and helping women, helping other women. At this stage of my life, it's kind of about that. What are the things that I can do to help somebody else because someone helped me?
Thank you so
I'm
much.
really flattered. Thank you.
Renee, thank you for being here. It's
Thank
been
you.
wonderful.
All righty. Bye-bye.
And I'd like to thank everyone for being here. And I want to encourage you to watch for our next show with Ruth Klein. And she will be talking about, how your brand shows up in your book. So if you're interested in writing a book, this is a 6-time best-selling author. She's working on her 7th book, or I think her 7th book is out. In fact, we'll talk about Generation Why Not. And that is going to be in 2 weeks. So I hope you join us. And for those who have not connected with us yet, please visit joinsmartwomen.com. So you'll get our monthly newsletter. It comes out the first Tuesday of every month. You'll know who each of our guests are, and you'll get invited to lots of free events, including you'll be invited to join the Smart Women's Academy with all kinds of free resources and classes. So until our next show, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity.